Hello Pisces, and welcome to your monthly horoscope for December for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you a broad overview of what to expect, but please stay with me. I will then dive deep to give you, in forensic detail, all the key dates and influences particularly relevant to your sign. So as you come into December, the Sun, Mercury and Venus are showcasing or helping you to showcase your talents. Also, this is an opportunity to set your intentions in terms of goals and ambitions. So really exciting in that regard. Now, Neptune, your co-ruler, is going to end a retrograde on the 4th. And I think you're really going to be happy about that, and that it's ending also a right angle to Mars in your 4th house of emotion around the same time. Now, if you have felt a little bit drained over October and November, it wouldn't be a surprise, or perhaps events around your situation were a bit dispiriting. Obviously, the harsh reality of those changes to the financial climate have been affecting many of us. But also, along with that aspect, Saturn has been squaring Uranus for the last couple of years. And Saturn's been in the most psychological part of your situation. It remains there. But the angle to Uranus also stretches out from around the 3rd or 4th of this month. So I think some of the edginess that's really been so prevalent over the last 2 years will start to make way too. The other big news to tell you about is that Jupiter, your traditional ruler, leaves your sign on the 20th but makes its way into your sector of everyday finance. So if your situation is quite challenging, be assured that Jupiter's in this location through to the 16th of May 2023. So that gives you an awesome window of opportunity to get back on the front foot and get the kind of control and sense of security we all want. And Jupiter can be extremely helpful to you in that regard. So much to tell you about. The full moon of the 8th is quite challenging, but there's a very sociable set of influences building up, particularly once we have the winter solstice. So please stay with me for more. If you would like to ascend above this zodiac broadcast and understand what year 2023 will hold for you personally, if you give me 3 pieces of birth data of time, date and place of birth, I can give you your forecast. If you order it in year 22, you'll get the rest of that year free. Plus, in my special package, you can get your life roadmap, your character analysis. Having this will help you to understand some of the repetitive patterns that have come up in your existence, perhaps the more challenging ones, but also the ones that give you opportunities. And having a deeper understanding of those can help you to really flourish in this new year. In my special package, you can get 30% off, so please see the link beneath this video. Also, if you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be honoured if you did so now. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. If you already have, thank you so much for your continued support and views. So Pisces, as you come into December, the Sun, Mercury and Venus are all in your 10th house. This is where we think about our goals and ambitions, our more physical targets. It has a kind of Capricornian energy, which is ironic because, of course, this trio will move into Capricorn later in the month, and Pluto is already in that sign waiting. So as you come into the month, it's possible that more professional hopes and responsibilities could be to the fore. But also, the energy that's been so challenging, as I mentioned before, the square between Neptune and Mars that's been prevalent since the start of October right through November, that dissipates from the 3rd or 4th. Neptune, your ruler, goes forwards on that day. That's really helpful. But also that square between Saturn and Uranus, I think it's been very attritional in terms of your nervous system, anxiety, stress, all these things have really been triggered by that influence. So that's stretching out also from the 3rd or 4th. So that's something to really be joyous about, to be honest. But Venus, the planet of relating, but also the planet of self-worth and appreciation of life's more sensual pleasures, in the 10th house, suggests at the start of this month that your way of presenting yourself, your people skills, your diplomacy can be very important in terms of seizing opportunities to thrive or raise your personal profile. But Venus is in a direct opposition with Mars at the start of this month. Now Mars continues to retreat through to the 12th of January in the sign of Gemini, where it pushes us to be more outspoken, essentially. But because of its retrograde and this opposition with Venus, you may find yourself having to toggle what you want in your worldly aims, or what a boss or employer demands of you, with your more home-based needs and instincts. But Mars is quite a defensive and quite prickly influence in the 4th house. It's actually pretty good in Gemini. It gives us a desire to communicate, to be more physically active, can make us a bit restless. But something between balancing what your need is to make progress in the physical sense, about keeping things in balance in the emotional world, or your everyday domestic situation, could prove challenging through this early part of the month. And it's not just Venus and Mars. That actually is an aspect that can create quite a lot of sexual interest. So is there somebody you encounter through your work who has quite an impact on you emotionally? That could be possible. Is there some kind of festive gathering that puts you directly opposite someone that you find very alluring, but whether it works at a more emotional level is another issue. But also on the 6th, Mercury makes its way into your 11th house, which is to do with friendship, future planning, being a bit more detached. It's a bit Aquarius, but it's good to sort of talk things over and take soundings and perhaps move your situation on a bit from the total focus that there may have been at the start of the month in terms of ambitions or those responsibilities. But on the 8th, we have a potentially tricky moment, because the full moon in Gemini is very close to that position of Mars. So the moon likes being in the 4th house, but with Mars there, that is very, very testing, because Mars is a very instant energy. It's about our ego. It's about frustration being showed. It can be about anger. The moon's about our need to protect, be safe, to nurture, to retreat a little bit. It's very Cancerian, of course. It rules that sign. So the 4th house works for the moon. It doesn't work in the combination with Mars. So your emotions could be quite near to the surface, or very tender on the back of this full moon. So perhaps the other way this can work out is all this energy in Sagittarius could be a load of demands and expectations on you from your employer. If very often Pisces people work in helping and caring jobs. So, if you're in nursing or personal care or some kind of nurture environment, and all the demands are coming in, and the strains that this may create could have an impact on home. So there could be some tempers close to the surface as those demands mount. However, on the 10th, Venus makes its way into Capricorn 2, joining up with Mercury and with Pluto. So this 11th house energy is really going to start to just make you think, hold on, this is a festive time of the year. If I can get together with people who are really important to me, could be your colleagues that you're close to, then it's important to have some play. Now, week 2 sees the Sun forge a very good link with Saturn. So your connection to people in positions of influence can be helped by understanding perhaps where they're coming from. So your discretion or working behind the scenes, or the research you're doing can be very helpful to framework the role you have or support the role you have in a professional context. But then from the 10th to the 17th, we have a much more testing influence because Neptune in your sign squares with the Sun. And if there have been a lot of demands, those professional demands, your exhaustion really can be quite strong from the 10th to the 17th. And it can almost be a little bit of an echo of the square between Mars and Neptune across October and November, except that the Sun may mean that you feel that your choices are rather limited in how you can respond. So if you're trying to steer the politics at work through your intuition or your awareness of how people are being treated, it may be counter to what the harsh expectations. We live in a world that's become ever more materialistic, ever more about the bottom line, and ever less about people. And you, being someone who can be a very people-orientated person, may find the politics at work particularly soul-destroying across the 10th to the 17th. But with Jupiter moving on the 20th, there can be some financial improvements that come into your situation. The 21st sees the winter solstice and the Sun move into Capricorn, which is very friendly. It's very much to do with fraternity. It is squaring up with Jupiter. A friend actually could be very generous to you. Perhaps you're going to help out someone else in your circle who's not so well off. If you're someone who's very supportive of the homeless or food banks, your compassion will really start to show from this point. But of course, the winter solstice ushers in the final 13 weeks of the astrological year, which begins with the spring equinox each year. So over this next 12-13 weeks, don't be surprised if you do want to get involved with good causes. I think that can often be something that calls out to Pisces people, but particularly this year. The 23rd sees a new moon in your sector of friendship, your longer term future, and that also links to Jupiter. Sun square Jupiter, and of course in this case the moon as well, can be very kind. So if you've got something to share, the chances are you'll want to do it. But it's also important to set boundaries with Jupiter because, otherwise the whole emphasis is kind of give, and then you may end up feeling a little bit empty if people are not necessarily very appreciative or respectful of your sacrifice. And that's a little bit of a conundrum for Pisces people for your life journey. But the 29th sees Mercury go backwards in this area. There could be some plans to meet up with friends or associates that get cancelled at the last minute. We all know that Mercury retrograde can be tough in some ways, but it also is an opportunity to reset, recalibrate, replan. So the 11th house is not just about friendship, it's also about the future. So as you formulate your New Year's resolutions and your hopes for 2023, it just may be that you may rethink some of the previous ideas you had. And because Venus is very close to Mercury, there could be someone who can be very supportive that you may want to network and work collaboratively with. And just because it's a new position, you can make the retrograde work well for you. Now, Venus also links with Pluto in the last few days of this year. If you are single, there could be someone in your circle who really steps forwards in terms of becoming much more important to you. It doesn't have to be romantic. It could be just the bond gets so deep. But Pluto can be about lust, and of course so can Venus in its rulership of Taurus, but also it can be very much to do with relating through its rulership of Libra. So just be aware that there could be a connection that develops that's really uplifting as the year comes to a close. But with Pluto, there often can be leverage. So if you are attracted to a friend, for example, what would be the situation if the relationship was brief, was a bit of a fling and didn't ensue? Would that leave you feeling a bit exposed? That's something to be conscious of, because remember, Saturn does stay in your 12th house, which can be tough right through to the time of the 7th of March when it moves into your sign. So I wouldn't give away your affections too freely, put it that way, but there could be something that calls out to you in such an evocative way as this year comes to a close. Perhaps it's going to be a reconnection with an old friend, get together with someone you went to school or college with or worked with in the past, and it could be really heartwarming to share those memories. Or it could be somebody new coming in, but just be conscious of what the motive is, either yours or the other person's, and that will help to protect you and them in terms of the potentials and the risks. But a very bubbly social end to the year after some quite heavy demands early on in the month, which could have an impact on your home and emotional energies. And just important to make sure that you're continuing to get rest as much as you can, despite the fact that Uranus and Saturn from the 3rd are no longer within 3 degrees of that exact, rather testing right angle. Now on Christmas Day itself, the moon is going to be in the sign of Aquarius, which could see you wanting to look out for any people that you know in your community who might be spending the day on their own. If you're spending the day on your own, but it's not a choice, you'll be particularly in my thoughts. But I'd like to wish all Pisces people a very happy Christmas and all the best for year 2023. Remember, Saturn's coming. You're going to have Jupiter move into your 3rd house on the 16th of May, and that North Node from the 13th of July come into your 2nd house, and your 2nd house also has a glorious new moon on the 21st of April. If you haven't watched your year 2023 video, please see it beneath this one. Thank you so much and goodbye.